Oh, hello there. I'm Bilchan.
I'm Nimakong.
I'm Banchan.
In this class, I'll read to all of you Chapter 14, Section 3 of The Picture of Dorian Gray.
As.
Ah.
The Picture of Dorian Gray. Oscar Wilde. Chapter 14, Section 3. He sighed and took up the volume again and tried to forget. He read of the swallows that fly in and out of the little cafat. Smina, where the hedges sit counting their amber beads and the turban merchants smoke there. On tassel papes and tuck gravy to each other. He read of the obelisk in the place to Lecancourt that whips off. Brunei in its lonely sunless exile and longs to be back by the hot lotus-covered Nile, where there are sphinxes and rose-red abizes and white vultures with gilded claws and crocodiles with small brown eyes that crawl over the green steaming mud. He began to brood over those verses which, drawing music from Kissing marble, tell of that curious statue that Gautier compares to a contralto voice. The instrument that crouches in the porphyry room of the Louvre. But after a time the book fell from his hand. He grew nervous, and a horrible fit of terror came over him. What if Alan Campbell should be out of England? Days would elapse before he could come back. Perhaps he might refuse to come. What could he do then? Every moment was of vital importance. They'd been great friends once. 5 years before, almost inseparable. Indeed. Then the intimacy had come suddenly to an end. When they met in society now, he was only Dorian Gray, he smiled. Alan Campbell never did. He was an extremely clever young man, though he had no real appreciation of the visible arts. And whatever little sense of the beauty of poetry he possessed, he had gained entirely from Dorian. His dominant intellectual passion was for science. At Cambridge he had spent a great deal of his time working in the laboratory, and had taken a good class in the natural science to repose of his ear. Indeed, he was still devoted to the study of chemistry, and had a laboratory of his own in which he used to shut himself up all day long, greatly to the annoyance of his mother, who had set her heart on his standing for Parliament and had a vague idea that a chemist was a person who made up prescriptions. He was an excellent musician, however, as Wilde, and played both the violin and the piano better than most amateurs. In fact, it was music that had first brought him and Dorian Gray token music, and that indefinable attraction that Dorian seemed to be able to exercise whenever he wished. Indeed, exercised often without being conscious of it. They had met at Lady Berkshire's the night that Rubinstein played there, and after that used to be always seen together at the opera wherever good music was going on. For 18 months their intimacy lasted. Campbell was always either at Selby Royal or in Grosvenor Square. To him, as to many others, Dorian Gray was the type of everything that is wonderful and fascinating in life. Whether or not a quarrel had taken place between them no one ever knew. But suddenly people remarked that they scarcely spoke when they met, and that Campbell seemed always to go away early from any party at which Dorian Gray was present. He had changed. So was strangely melancholy at times. Appeared almost like hearing music, and would never himself play. giving as his excuse, when he was called upon, that he was so absorbed in science that he had no time left in which to practice. And this was certainly true. Every day he seemed to become more interested in biology, and his name appeared once or twice in some of the scientific reviews in connection with certain curious experiments. This was the man Dorian Gray was waiting for. Every second he kept glancing at the clock. As the minutes went by, he became horribly agitated. At last he got up and began to pace up and down the room, looking like a beautiful caged thing. He took long stealthy strides. His hands were curiously cold. The suspense became unbearable. Time seemed to him to be crawling with feet of lead, while he by monstrous winds was being swept towards the jagged edge of some black cleft of precipice. He knew what was waiting for him there. So it, indeed, and shuddering, crushed with dank hands his burning lids, as though he would have robbed the very brain of sight and driven the eyeballs back into their cave. It was useless. The brain had its own food on which it battened, and the imagination, made grotesque by terror, twisted and distorted as a living thing by pain, danced like some foul puppet on a stand and grinned through moving masks. And suddenly, time stopped for him. Yes, that blind, slow breathing thing crawled no more, and horrible thoughts, time being dead, raced nimbly on in front, and dragged a hideous feature from its grave, and showed it to him. He stared at it. Its very hair made in stone. At last the door opened and his servant entered. He turned glazed eyes upon him. "We're still. Comfort." "Sir," said the man. "To be continued."